Hello. Good morning. Can I have everyone take their seats, please, so we can begin on time? We will begin in just 1 minute. If everyone can find their seats, please. Hey, how are you? Okay. That is actually closed. Yeah, that's to our jurisdiction. It's student affairs. So, but let's talk after. Okay? All right. Good morning. We are about to begin. If everyone can please take their seats. All right, well, good morning, everyone. How are we feeling today? Welcome to the Spring 2024 Presidential Address. My name is Natalie Andrade Dominguez, and I am the student body president here at Sacramento State, and I am honored to be here today to open up our presidential address. We will begin by sharing our land acknowledgement. We acknowledge with respect the land our campus is on today was and continues to be the homelands of the indigenous people of this area, the Nisenan, Patwin, Nisenan, and Miwok. The larger Sacramento area and its rivers serve as a gathering place for many local tribes from the surrounding valley and foothills, including the southern Maudu, Patwin, and Wintun. We recognize these lands and riverways as unceded traditional territories of these Native peoples. We further recognize these California Native nations and respect their sovereignty. By offering this land acknowledgement, we affirm a commitment to build relations and foster a university environment of success to better serve Native nations and communities. And now it is my honor to introduce Vice LaPena, a Native American educator at the United Auburn Indian Community Tribal School and traditional singer and dancer leader. Vince is the son of Frank LaPena, world-renowned Indian artist and former Sacramento State professor of ethnic studies, Native American studies, and art. Vince has joined us today to provide us with an education on land stewardship and share a song. Thank you.
Thank you. Good morning, everybody. Thank you for having me here today. I also want to acknowledge the original people of this place, the Nisenan people. A lot of them are my friends. Myself, I'm a Wintu Indian, come from the Trinity River. Was born in Redding, California, but I've spent most of my life down here in the Sacramento area when my dad got a job here at Sac State. Currently, I'm a school teacher. I work for the United Auburn Indian Community. I work at their tribal school, and I teach California Indian Cultural Studies. You know, the land is important for all of us as human beings. Everything that we need comes from the land. And our original people, the Nisenan, the Miwok, the Wintun, the Tolowa, the Karuk, all the tribes anywhere on the earth, we all depend on the earth. And so our people here, we always take care of the land because the land takes care of us. And, you know, I spend a lot of time walking down here at the river. I don't know if you guys do. How many of you go down for walking at the river? All right, it's a beautiful place, right? You have a nice green belt here in Sacramento, and I live up in Carmichael, so the green belt goes all the way up there. You go down there, you see deer, you might see coyote, you might see hawk or eagle. You might go down there and watch the salmon when they're spawning. It's a beautiful place to go. But it needs people too. You know, a lot of times when we think about environmentalism, we think that people are the problem. Well, in some cases we are, but not if we know how to take care of the land. Then we are part of the solution. When we bring traditional knowledge and practices back to the land, controlled burning, trimming of different types of plants, digging of roots, we help to increase the productivity of the land, and we help the other plants and animals that live there. And so when we think about our native traditions, all of them are tied to the land. So if you think of, how many have seen baskets? Anybody seen baskets? Here in California, basketry was at its highest form. And so all of the plants down the river, the willows, the sedge roots, the red buds, all those plants are used for baskets. So the ladies who are the basket weavers, they have to go out there and take care of those plants. Right now, you know, we just had our first freeze, I think around January 7th. I've been paying attention. This Maidu basket weaver, Denise Davis, she told me, okay, after the first freeze, that's the time to go and gather your willows because the bark has attached to the wood. That's the time to go cut the red bud so that you can let it grow the whole year so that it can make long, straight pieces that have a nice red color so you can put that in your design. Another thing that we do at this time of year is we gather the elderberry. And that's the plant that I was asked to come up here and talk about today. The elderberry, I'm not sure if you guys are familiar with it, it's a shrub that lives along the river, but it's not just a shrub, it's actually the tree of music. Because for the tribes here in the Central Valley and in Northern California, we use what we call the clapper stick, which is a stick from the elderberry plant and that has been made into a rhythm instrument. And so here in this part of California, we don't really have a lot of instruments. Mainly it's a rhythm instrument, the clapper stick. We also have a elderberry flute, which I don't have. And then also the human voice. That's the main instrument. So I'll be sharing a song with you, but before I do, I want to talk a little bit about the elderberry plant. I actually prepared this this trifold thing here, but I didn't realize I was coming to such a large audience. Usually I'm teaching, you know, preschool or third grade or something like that, and so we only have a few people there, and so they could come up and see this. But anyway, I can open it up and show you what I have. This is my... Okay, so the 5 people that are sitting over here will be able to see that. Everybody else, you just have to guess. Okay, so the elderberry plant, you know, there's a story about how that got planted, you know, because all of our cultures, wherever we come from, we have stories. And, you know, if you think about, say, Egypt, you know, they got to have a lot of different animal figures in their stories. Well, over here, we have a lot of animals in our stories, too. And for the Plains Miwok to the south of here, 2 of their characters in a story are coyote and prairie falcon. They are in a lot of the stories. And so the story of the elderberry tree is one about this big mountain that's down south. I don't know if you guys have heard of it. we'll see. It's called Oyombule. You guys heard of that? Of course you haven't, because it's called Mount Diablo now. But you guys ever heard of Mount Diablo? Okay, they say that you can see more area of land from Mount Diablo than anywhere else on earth besides Mount Kilimanjaro. So you could see far and wide from the top of Mount Diablo, or Oyombule, as I'll say. So they say that a long time ago, Moloch the condor lived on that mountain, and he would fly all around all day, and each night he would come back and he would roost on a special rock. And he did this all the time. Well, one morning he woke up and he looked at this rock and he thought, something is different about this rock. I need to ask for some advice. So the condor went down the side of the mountain and found these two twin brothers. They were blackbirds, but they were also Indian doctors. And they came up and they examined the rock and they said, she's going to have a baby. And Moloch was pretty surprised, like, what? Okay, what do we need to do? And the blackbird said, well, we need to keep her warm, so we need to build a fire around her. So they went and got sticks and everything like that. They piled the sticks around the rock. They lit it, and that heated it up. Now, as they heated it up, they started hearing this cracking noise until the rock split open. And Wek-Wek, the prairie falcon, flew out of the rock. And Wek-Wek flew down to the south and out over the ocean to the west, and then to the north, and then finally to the east. Now, when Wek-Wek was flying in the east, he heard this beautiful music and thought, wow, that's really nice. And he flew back to the mountain. When he landed, Moloch was there, the condor. Said, hello there, son. Welcome. And Wek-Wek said, hello, father. You know, when I was flying, I heard this beautiful music to the east. Do you know anything about that? And Moloch said, no, I don't know about that. We'll have to ask your grandpa. He said, well, how do I get my grandpa? He said, well, when you flew out over the ocean, did you see any driftwood floating? And Wek-Wek said, well, I'm not sure. And Moloch said, well, you need to go to the west, fly out over the ocean, and you'll find a piece of driftwood floating there. You land on that driftwood and get a small piece of it and bring it back here. And so the next day, Wek-Wek flew over to the ocean. He found that piece of driftwood, landed on it, had a little bone knife under his wing. He took a piece and pried it off, and he took it back home to the mountain. He said, Father, I found this driftwood. What do you want me to do with it? He said, you need to bury it over there off to the side. So Wek-Wek went over and he buried that piece of driftwood on the side of the mountain. Then they went to bed. In the morning, he woke up, and where he had buried that piece of driftwood was a house. And Coyote came walking out. He said, who called me over here? Oh, that was me. Oh, who are you? I'm Wek-Wek. I'm your grandson. Oh, grandson, how are you? I'm fine. But you know, I have a question for you, grandfather. He said, oh yeah, what's that? He said, well, when I was born, I went flying to the east and I heard this beautiful music. Is there anything you could tell me about that? And Coyote said, oh yes. That's the elderberry tree. There's one of them that exists. And it lives in the east. It's guarded by the Holoki, the star maidens. And the tree sings day and night, and that keeps the star maidens from getting sleepy. And Wek-Wek said, well, you know, that music was really beautiful. I'd like to hear it again. And I'd like to have it here at our house. Is there any way I could get that tree? And Coyote said, well, I'm not sure if they would give it to you, but maybe you could trade something. You know, we have these money beads that we use called clamshell beads. We call them hawak. And so Coyote gave Wek-Wek 3 strands of hawak beads. He said, well, take these with you, and maybe they'll trade. But beware, When you go there, they don't get visitors very often. They're going to try to keep you there. So don't stay. Wek Wek said, okay. Well, the next morning, Wek Wek took those clamshell beads and he flew to the east. And as he flew, he started hearing that beautiful music. And as he flew, it got louder and louder until finally he descended through the clouds and he could see this lone tree on a hill. So he went down and he landed next to that. And the star maidens were nearby and they greeted him. Hello there. How are you, stranger? Oh, I'm good. My name's Wek Wek. I've come because I heard this beautiful tree singing. And I was wondering if we could get a tree like this for our house. And the star maidens, they said, well, this is the only one. And we can't give you this tree. And Wek Wek said, well, I brought something that I could trade, though. I brought these clamshell beads. And so the star maidens, they looked at these beads, and they really liked them. So they said, well, tell you what. We can't give you the whole tree, but we can give you a part of it for those beads. And when we give you a part of this tree, you will have the whole tree. Now, Wek Wek didn't quite know what they meant by that, but he agreed. He gave them the beads, and they said, okay, you can take one branch. Now, the tree was also guarded by rattlesnakes. So when Wek Wek approached the tree, all the rattlesnakes came out from the bottom and hissed at him and started rattling their tails. Of course, he didn't want to get bit, so he had to wait for the star maidens to call the snakes off. And so the snakes went back down in their dens, and Wek Wek was allowed to go up and take a small branch off of the elderberry tree. Now, when he took that branch, the star maiden said, you know, we would love it if you stayed and had some food with us and just relax and have fun. Wek Wek said, I'm sorry, I can't stay. I have to get back home. Because they remember what Coyote told him. So Wek Wek took that piece of branch and he flew back to the mountain. When he got there, he took that branch into Coyote's house. Coyote said, oh, you brought it back. Very good. And so they took that little branch and they put it in on the ground. And Coyote started singing. And as he was singing this song, this little branch started glowing and started singing along. And they danced and they sang all night long in Coyote's house. And as the sun started coming up over the mountain in the east, Coyote said, okay, it's time. And so they stopped singing. They took that little branch of elderberry, and Wek Wek, the prairie falcon, and Coyote went down the side of the mountain, and they took that little branch, and they'd make little holes in the ground, and they would touch that branch into the hole, and another little tree would start growing there. And they went around all day long, putting this little tree everywhere, this little branch. And everywhere they went, and they touched this branch into the earth, a little elderberry tree started growing. And they got pretty far, all around the mountain. But then it was, getting nightfall again, so they said, okay, we are done. We got to go back home. So they went back to Coyote's house. And Coyote said, okay, we need to do one more dance, one more song. And so they started singing, they started dancing in Coyote's house, and they danced all night long. And then as the sun started coming up over the mountains in the east, Coyote said, okay, it's time. So they stopped. They went out of the house, and they looked out from the top of the mountain, and they could see all of the new elderberry trees growing, glowing, and all the elderberry trees were singing together. And Coyote said, okay, from this day forward, we will have these elderberry trees. And the human beings that come, the Miwok and the Maidu, the Anishinaabe. They will all have this tree to be able to use for food and for medicine and for music, because this is the tree of music. And so since that day, the people have been able to use the elderberry for clapper sticks, for flutes, and also for arrow shafts and fire drills. So I don't know if you guys know what a fire drill is. Not when the bell goes off and everybody goes outside, but when you're trying to start a fire and you have to rub sticks together, you know. So a fire drill can be made out of the elderberry. And then, of course, I don't know if you guys ever had elderberry syrup or elderberry pie or elderberry juice or elderberry throat lozenges. Right? They're making everything out of elderberry now because it's high in antioxidants, right? So anyway, Coyote and Weck, they planted that elderberry all around, and then they left it to the humans. I would say us now, right? Before, it was just the Anishinaabe here on the American River. Of course, it's called Natoma. That means it's coming from the east. And, of course, the Petwin over on the other side of the river on the west side. And then, of course, the Miwok on the south. Everybody uses the elderberry. And we still use it today. A lot of times you have to go out, like I said, when the sap goes down in the tree. So that would be this time of year. And we look for nice, long, straight pieces. And usually the pieces of elderberry that we use are between 2 and 4 years old. In that amount of time, they will have grown enough wood and the proper length to be able to make a clapper stick. And so we go out and we look at all this, all the plants first. We don't just cut things down for no reason. We look at it first and say, okay, is that one that we can use? And if so, we might mark it and then come back when it's time to cut it. So we cut it nice and long and straight, and then we have to make sure that it's seasoned. So we'll set it off to the side in a nice, cool, dry place and let it season. Because if you try to make a clapper stick when the stick is freshly cut, when it dries, it will warp, and so it won't be very good. But after the stick is dried, we remove the bark, and then also, of course, you can't see this because you're too far away, but inside of the elderberry, there's something called a pith. It's really soft, and so that has to be removed as well. And then the whole stick is split in half, but not all the way. It's split just down, and then you have part that's a handle. Now, in this style here, there's an opening that lets some of the sound out, but there's other styles of clapper sticks also where they don't have a window, so just depending on where you are. And these ones aren't so fancy, but you do have some people that like to paint theirs, put designs on them. You can see there's a little bit of wood burning that done in this one, and so you can kind of personalize it. And again, the clapper stick is just used to keep time when you're singing a song. And so I will sing a song. Oh, but wait, there's one more thing I need to say. Because one of the issues we have with the elderberry is it's called the velb, the Valley Elderberry Longhorn Beetle. Okay, so that was on the, I think the threatened list, or maybe it was even endangered at one point, but due to habitat destruction, right? So remember, it's not the Indians that caused that. So hopefully we will still be able to go and get elderberry sticks to use for clapper sticks. But I know that all of us together can help to bring health back to this river and to plant more elderberries, and then maybe everybody will get a chance to have elderberry syrup on their acorn pancakes or something, right? All right, well, I don't know how much time I went through there, but I will sing a song for you now. I don't know what song to sing. There's a few of them. As I mentioned, my tribe is Wintu tribe, but I've been hanging out down here in the Sacramento area with the Maidus and the Nishinan and the Miwoks, and so I've learned from a lot of the different elders some different songs. One of the elders was going to be here with me today to lend her support, but she couldn't make it, so I had to get her support from afar. But she has a song that she always likes to sing, and so I thought maybe I would sing that song. It's a song that this old lady, Marie Potts, used to sing. I don't know if any of you are familiar with her. She actually used to be Governor Brown's nanny. But she is a mountain Maidu lady, and I had the honor of meeting her when I was a kid. And so she would sing this song, and she used it for the eagle dance, and her grandkids would do the dance. And yeah, so maybe I'll sing that song. All right. Oh, and at the end, you don't have to clap, okay? So what you could do is you could say, "Oh!" Can you guys try that? Oh. All right, let's try it again. Oh. Okay, one more time. Oh. All right, well, when you do it, make sure you feel it, okay? Because that's our way of showing appreciation. Like when we go to the roundhouse and we do our ceremonial dances, or if we're out somewhere and we do a talk or a song, when we're done, the people say, "Oh," and that's a way of saying, "Yes, I agree." Or for people that might be religious, it's kind of like saying amen. It's showing your agreement with what has been done. So if you appreciate the song, when I finish, everyone say, "Oh," like that, okay? All right. Waka cha ho wanyaki ho, hey oh we no, hey oh we no, hey oh we no, honey no. Waka cha ho wanyaki ho, waka cha ho wanyaki ho, hey oh we no, hey oh we no, hey oh we no, honey no. Wakalaka chaho wanayaki ho, wakalaka chaho wanayaki ho. Hey oh we no, hey oh we no, hey oh we no, wani no. Wakalaka chaho wanayaki ho, wakalaka chaho wanayaki ho. Oh, all right. Well, that's an eagle song. But sometimes we use it for playing hand game too, so we can kind of swoop in and grab the sticks and come and get them for our side. So I'll sing one more for you because I might have a minute. But this is a song that has a little bit different rhythm, so I can just mix it up a bit. All right. So here we go. A little faster one this time. Ya ha kakani yo, ya ha kakani yo. Ya ha kakani yo, 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 ya ha kakani yo. When they ya ha kakani yo, ya ha kakani yo. Ya ha kakani yo, 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 ya ha kakani yo. When they ya ha kakani yo. Oh. Thank you so much for having me here today.
Good morning and welcome everyone to the 2024 Spring Presidential Address. I'm Adam Rex, a professor from the Department of Biological Sciences and this year's chair of the Faculty Senate. I had to actually check to make sure this is only President Wood's second presidential address. It seems like he's been here leading the campus longer than that, in just one semester. I think this might be because when President Wood arrived on campus, he was immediately thrown into the deep end, dealing with several unforeseen, call them calamities. But he rolled up his sleeves and began tackling problems with great deal of skill, seemingly like he had been doing it for a long time. Since I started here 22 years ago, the campus is getting steadily better in nearly every way. However, we still have some problem areas, ones that all universities are dealing with, such as budget issues, low enrollment, low staff and faculty morale, equity gaps, etc. And while we are doing better than most other campuses, we still have a lot of work to do. But after listening at length to the concerns of the campus community, President Wood has some plans to address these campus challenges. What are his plans? What are his plans? Why, that is a great question, fictitious audience member. And what a great segue. Here to answer that question and more, it is my pleasure to introduce the President of Sacramento State, Luke Wood.
Thank you so much for that. Good morning. Oh, good. There's a lot of energy. All right, I love it. So obviously, this is the spring address, and there's a lot to talk about, and I want to just make sure that we have time to really reflect upon what we heard from the listening sessions. And so many of you, in fact, raise your hand if you participated in a listening session. Wow. You see that? That's amazing. Thank you so much. So I'd like to begin by just, first of all, thanking everyone for your dedication to our students. It is absolutely just astounding to hear from the students how much they feel supported by the faculty and staff here at Sacramento State. And when I was listening to the students talk about it, I was reflecting, of course, upon my own experience having been a student here and just really being proud of what Sacramento State has done in the past and where it continues to go in the future. So I'm going to jump in with talking about some of the challenges that we're looking at, and then get to some of the things that we're going to look at for the future. So many of you may be aware that the state has announced that there is a budget deficit, and looking at $38 billion over 1 year. And that, of course, has an impact on all state systems, and we are obviously operate as a state system, the California State University, and so that obviously has implications for us to at least a certain degree. As you also know, there has been system-wide negotiations going on with our represented labor unions, and there will be an unprecedented strike from our faculty, the California Faculty Association, and our staff with the Teamsters. And as I know that you all know, all the negotiations for employee compensation take place at the Chancellor's office level. And as a president, I don't have, unfortunately, a role in negotiations or the decision-making that goes along with that. Of course, though, I do hear from our faculty, I do hear from our staff, and I make sure that what I hear is reflected upward so that folks know what is taking place on the ground. And I know that our employees are seeking to be compensated at a level that honors the critical contributions that you make. This campus celebrates a lot of successes. One of them has been the incredible increase in graduation rates. And while I would love to say that, you know, the administrators are the ones who are doing that, certainly part of some of that sauce. It's the folks who are on the ground who are working with students every day who are really the ones who are making that happen. So I do want to acknowledge that many of our faculty and staff right now at this time, based upon where the negotiations stand, do feel hurt, do feel a sense of abandonment, and that I hope that a resolution does come soon, because I know that it is incredibly stressful for those who are working for Sacramento State. As part of how we have to think about our budget scenario, it also deals with enrollment. And so, as you know, we are one of the few campuses to meet our enrollment targets. And that was a great thing. And we have continued to see some softening, which is why we've been so aggressive in marketing essentially the things that the campus is doing. One of the things I heard from the listening sessions is that we're one of the best kept secrets. And I keep saying to myself, well, why are we a secret? We don't need to be. And so you're going to continue to see us be more vocal in going to the public and going to the media and sharing the story, the great work that's happening, for example, with our foster youth, the great work that's happening with graduation rates, with our athletic endeavors, with the arts, just really starting to share that story even more. But enrollment does have to increase. And so we're doing some concerted efforts. We're okay, but we're not great. Now, okay is still a lot better than where everyone else is doing right now. And so we're being aggressive about making sure that we don't have some of those same situations that you're seeing at other campuses. Part of what that means is that we're looking at maybe whether or not we should be consolidating in some areas. And I want to be specific that these conversations are really looking at some of our smaller divisions and whether or not smaller divisions can be joined together where there is a shared purpose to create a larger division for a number of reasons. One, to reduce work not work, but work, well, actually work too, but stress on staff. Because one of the things I hear about with our smaller divisions is that when there's one person who's responsible for one very important thing, and that person decides that they need to, as they should, go on vacation, and the office essentially stops because that person is gone. And then it puts pressure on that person to not leave to go on vacation. It puts pressure on them to work incredibly long hours that are far beyond what they're expected to do. And that doesn't seem to be something that demonstrates care to those who are, to our employees who are trying to demonstrate care to our students. It also provides the ability for smaller divisions to be able to flex their budget when critical needs arise. And to also, as we think about smaller divisions, to protect the central mission that we have, which is within academic affairs and the teaching and learning enterprise that we have. So nothing has been fully decided at this point, but I just wanted to make sure folks know that, hey, we're exploring those options as a way of addressing multiple issues at the same time, but the priority within that is really the stress that it's placing on staff. You are also probably aware, as we've talked about last time, and I've talked about much with our campus community, what's going on with Capital Public Radio. Capital Public Radio is a critical auxiliary of the university. It is a separate entity like Union Well, like Associated Students, like our foundation, and it also has, of course, a direct relationship with the campus. As I walked into this role, we were receiving at that time what was billed as the worst and most concerning audit that the state has ever done in the CSU system. And so obviously we were concerned about what that meant. There were significant financial challenges, reporting at that time that there was $3 million in reserve, and in fact there was less than $100,000 at that time. Fortunately, we've had some people in place who've been doing just incredible work. I want to thank Jonathan Bowman and his team, who have been working arduously to try to create a better circumstance there. I want to thank Tom Carlo, who is our interim GM, and I would say even most importantly to thank the Cap Radio staff, because it's been very hard for them to try to turn around the situation. I mean, basically we were coming into it after the Titanic had already hit the iceberg. So trying to figure out what to do at that point was a little bit difficult. But I think that we're in a much better position than we were. We're reconstituting the board at the next meeting. Listenership is up. There's been, fortunately, a bump in donations in that those who are donating to Cap Radio are returning, which is absolutely critical, and we need that to continue. The contract with NPR has been extended, which is amazing because that was not a given. So we can know that between now through 2028, that National Public Radio will be part of what we do here through Sacramento State and through the Capital Public Radio Auxiliary. The January timeline of when it was supposed to essentially run out of funds has been now extended through May. But we also know that with those great things that are happening, that the forensic examination will be coming back soon, that will yield insights into what happened, what went wrong. And just based upon some of the things I've seen in advance of that, I can tell you that probably what you expect would have happened for something to get that bad is exactly what happened. And so there's more to see there. But I do know that going into this election, having unbiased news and reporting and putting accurate information out to the public is part of the educational mission of the university. And so we will still continue to fight for Cap Radio because it's creating a better understanding of what's really taking place in this world. So in terms of the 100 days of listening, as you all know, in April of this year, the university launched its strategic plan, and then I started in July. And it's an amazing plan. It has really just amazing, what we would call strategic priorities, what we call the 6 imperatives. That's clearly laid out within it. It has really good goals. All of the things that you would look to and say that these are important for what it means to be Sacramento State are embedded within that plan. And at the same time, there was no action items. And so there's a plan that's in place, and then coming in as a new president, wanting to help advance that plan, but not necessarily having the actions to do it. And so set out on 100 days of listening. Now, in reality, I think it was far more than 100 days, but it ended up being a metaphorical 100 days of listening. And we had 92 listening sessions that were about 75 minutes each. And as you saw, just based upon the folks that raised their hand in the room, many of you participated in that and shared your insights, shared your perspectives. Over 1,500 students, faculty, staff, alumni, community members, leaders in our business community, chambers, all participated in those sessions. And for those of you who are participating in the sessions, you know that we had some guiding questions. One of the questions is, what is it that makes us distinctive? The next question was, where do you want to see us 5 years from now or even tomorrow, and what are the specific things you think we need to do to get there? And then how do we accomplish all of that while continuing to embrace our values of justice, equity, diversity, and inclusion? And then about halfway through the sessions, we started hearing all these issues around things that are taking place that really shouldn't be taking place the way they are. And so we added in another question about halfway through that says, is there anything that we should stop doing or stop doing it the way that we are doing it? And that also yielded some pretty important insights. So initially we had thought that we would have about 40 different action items for the campus, and we were able to get that down to about 35 that we sent out to the campus community for feedback. And when you're doing something where you're curating this information across all these different stakeholder groups, different things rise in terms of what's salient, but then when you send it out to the campus community, you get a different perspective. And so the initial goal of 40 went down to 35, and now we sent out 23 action items to the campus, which I think is good. 23 is far fewer than what most strategic plans would have. Most plans would have, somewhere 40 to 45. Ours has 23. I think that's good, especially because one of the things that we heard in the sessions with people is that folks are burnt out, they're stressed. And so let's pick the 23 things that we're going to do well rather than trying to do 50 things and do them mediocre. So we identified as part of that process 2 different types of actions. One, actions that are operational, and then those that are strategic. Operational things are things that you're not going to see necessarily a big press release on. They're just stuff that we've got to do internally to make ourselves a better organization. One of those that we heard is that the dial-out number for campus is 9. And so you already know where this is going. So when we had the listening sessions, we learned from our law enforcement that because that dial-out number is 9, then folks want to dial out, they then press 1, and then they accidentally press 1 again. You've now dialed 911. And then so what happens is then, based upon their protocol, they call back and say, hey, because the person realized, oh, I wasn't supposed to do that. Click. They put down the phone. So then they call back, and then the person does what you would expect that they would do, which is pick up the phone and just say, I'm sorry, I dialed an accident. No, that's not what really happens. They don't pick up the phone. And then, as a result, based upon their protocol, they have to go out to 911 calls. And we heard that there are a ton of false 911 calls every single day that basically take the time of our officers. And so, wanting to be thoughtful about undue stress on all of our staff, we're changing the dial-out number. And there's a notice that's going out either today or pretty soon that we're changing it to 7. So... It's not a press release, but something we should just do. We're also changing based upon feedback that we heard from our faculty and in Deaf Studies. We're changing interpretation services back to Deaf Studies. That's another thing that I think is very important. We are having a goal to move our Pride Center into a larger space than it currently is in. We are setting a plan and putting a plan into place to move our math and stats faculty into one area. We're going to be providing an annual tally of the total number of MPP 3s and 4s to the campus and to the Senate so we can monitor MPP density. And we're also making changes to the university brand guidelines to make them simpler and easier to use. So those are just a few of, no joke, maybe about 50 things that are going to be doing. These are, again, just smaller operational things that we need to do as a campus. But there's also larger strategic things that we're doing. We released the $1 million in research assigned time, and the goal is to grow that to $2 million in research assigned time that is for research and for the creative arts. And specifically for research and creative arts that engages our students, because that's why we exist here, is to create those opportunities. And we will remain a campus committed to teaching and learning. We're ensuring that more of our students have paid internships. And we'll be engaged in a series of cluster hires of faculty who have a demonstrated record of success in doing research, teaching, and service focused on our minoritized student populations. So what you will see is that we've released the 23 strategic actions, and then there also we'll put out kind of one larger email that can encapsulate all of the operational things. They'll be called moving forward memos. So essentially, having listened, moving forward memos on what we're going to do that are these operational things that will hopefully just make it easier to work at Sacramento State. Okay, so the other thing that we heard from the listening sessions is, again, that question about what is it that makes us distinctive? And wow, we learned a lot. And I have to say that having been somebody who went to school here as a student, a lot of it resonated with the very things that brought me here as a student to Sacramento State. So one of the things that we heard is what makes us distinctive is our proximity to the state capitol, the center of power for the 5th largest economy in the world. I know that it was said that we're the 4th. It is the 5th. Moving hopefully towards becoming the 4th. Maybe not with the current budget deficit, but we'll get there eventually. But that proximity to the Capitol is what brings a lot of students here to study at Sacramento State. We also, what brings folks here is the diversity within our community. We have a beautiful tapestry of individuals from different backgrounds. We serve a high percentage of first-generation, low-income students of color, students from minoritized backgrounds. And when you walk on this campus, you see the beauty of what the world should be, and that is not always reflected in the same way at our UC, at the UC campuses in our state and at our sister CSUs. It is a distinctive feature of our campus. We are a campus that is focused on justice, equity, diversity, and inclusion and belonging. We are also making strides towards our plan on anti-racism that's being led by Dr. Settles Tidwell. And so there's some great work that's taking place. Another thing that we heard is that this is a campus where faculty and staff care. Where you're not just a number, but you're a name and you're a future. And I think that that's powerful. That we have a family of educators here that is committed to transforming the lives of our students, their families, and improving the region. And we also heard that many of our staff who are here were students here at one point, and they stayed here or came here because of how much this campus meant to them and to their journey. And I think that that's a beautiful thing. In fact, one staff member said, when I came to Sac State, the students blew me away. The students drive me to be here and to stay here. One faculty said, the students bring so much to the table in terms of creativity, commitment, engagement, grit, and personal experiences. And one student said, faculty and the environment here, they give you hope. Another thing that we heard from individuals that brings them here is our athletic success. Lots of students talk about, hey, I applied here because there's a winning football team. Now, I have to say that that's diametrically just opposed to what I was used to as a student here. So our football coaches here, thank you for being here. And yeah, thank you for continuing that legacy. And we also know that is beyond football, but all of our intercollegiate athletics, our club sports, our rec sports, and even students who participate in our intramural sports. I would point out that as I'm making this point, that there is a women's basketball game tonight, and it's at 6:30 in the Nest, so please come out and support them. These are not our athletes, but our student athletes, and so they are part of our community and have to be supported. But we have renowned athletic programs, which gives our students, our faculty, our staff, and especially our alumni a connection back to the campus. It creates a sense of excitement, pride, and generates a sense of connection to the campus. And at the same time, there's more that we need to do around that, and we'll get to that at some point today. Another thing that brings people here is our beautiful park-like campus. When you walk on this campus, you feel like you're strolling through a park. The trees, the squirrels. We used to have chickens when I was a student here. The Arboretum. It's a beautiful campus, and a lot of our students say that they come here because it gives them a sense of peace and sense of comfort. And I think that that's, in a world that is, I think, typified by strife, political opposition, and dissent, it's nice to be on a campus that creates a sense of peace. Another thing that brings people here is our sense of commitment to community engagement. We heard immense pride about our status, as a deeply committed, community-engaged campus. We heard wonderful remarks about our Community Engagement Center. We also heard complications about the use of the term, not the initiative itself, but the use of the term anchor, with a number of people remarking that, well, the idea of us being an anchor campus is that we're embedded in the community. Isn't that the opposite of being an anchor? Doesn't an anchor drag you down? Well, an anchor holds you down, and we're held down in the community, but there was a sense of complication around that we did hear. But unquestionably, the idea that we are committed to the community and that we're committed to community engagement was very clear. And we even heard from our staff that they want more opportunities to be part of the work that's happening there, especially because many of them are already doing that work, but it's not acknowledged and recognized as part of that larger campus story. One person said, everyone in this community has a connection to Sac State. Another person said, we open our arms to the community, and the community opens its arms to us. And another person said, our students stay here and help grow and improve this region. Another thing that makes us distinctive is our hands-on, applied, practical education. We heard from a lot of folks, particularly in our business community, that they prefer and love to hire graduates at Sacramento State. Even more so, won't say any names, than neighboring institutions. And here's why. They said that a Sac State student can go to work day one. A student from another institution can come in and contribute some really good theory and really good ideas about research, but maybe not have that hands-on practical day one experience. Now, that's not to put that down in any way, but it is to say that there is something distinctive and unique, and a lot of employers said that they prioritize our students when they're making hiring decisions because they have real-world experience. They've been exposed to high-impact practices through student research, creative endeavors, and in particular, programs such as nursing and criminal justice and computer science and engineering, and I could go et cetera, are leading the way in terms of this region. One person said, our students can compete with the best of the best. And I think that's beautiful. In fact, if you were to go to the state capitol today, just as an example, and walk through the halls of the state capitol and start talking to all the staffers, I think many of you would be astounded how many of them are graduates of Sacramento State. And I'll tell you why I know that. Because when I walk through the halls of the state capitol, it's stingers up, stingers up, stingers up, all the way through. And then the last thing that we heard is just a sense of pride about our increase in graduation rates. As you all know, this campus went from an 8.5% graduation rate to a 28.5% graduation rate for the four-year graduation rate. That is amazing. And we have to see those signs of accomplishment that we can do even more, and we will. Now, there's also things that people said needs work. We need to redefine what we mean by student success, because we have historically talked about student success here, and it really means graduation rates. And graduation rates is certainly a marker of student success, but you know what else is a marker of student success? Whether or not a student gets a job after they graduate from here, and median earnings after that, right? And so when you hear me talk about student success, it means graduation rates plus labor market outcomes, because it has to be the connection between the two, because our whole goal is to help students create a better life for themselves and for their families. We also know that we have persistent equity gaps between certain students and their peers, and that we have to continue to address those issues. Students talk about the need for us to have an enhanced campus life. For example, the campus can't just close at 5 when we serve non-traditional students. So we have to think about that. We also heard concerns about all of our policies and our processes, and someone said, you know, we transitioned from being in person to being online, back to being in person, but we never considered how we do what we do. We went from being paper to online, but never evaluated whether our processes were still valid. And so you'll see something in here about that. We also have an aging infrastructure. We heard about buildings that are not in the best of shape as they could be, and issues with HVAC and bathrooms and bathroom stalls and all sorts of our classrooms and the desks in our classrooms. So we've got some work to do. We heard about this notion that we herald being a Hispanic serving institution and an Asian American, Native American, Pacific Islander serving institution, an HSI and an ANAPZ. But then when we look at what we actually say and do for those communities in terms of actual actions that are on the ground, it doesn't always mirror that. And so there's concerns about being performative around those actions. We heard about our graduate infrastructure, that we talk about the need to grow graduate programs, but we have not appropriately resourced the infrastructure or created a bridge between undergraduate and graduate education. We heard that our alumni often feel disconnected, that they feel like once they graduate, there's no connection back to the campus. They don't hear from the campus, and if they do hear from the campus, it's because we are asking them for money. Now, that's important too, but that shouldn't be the only way in which we engage them. We should be engaging them through the arts. We should be engaging them through athletics. We should be engaging them in providing internships and mentoring our students in other ways that are meaningful. We also heard about the need for a greater commitment to the arts. We have world-class programs in music, dance, film, and the visual and performing arts. We have the new art sculpture lab that is being built currently, but we also heard that the lab that the art sculpture lab, that building, didn't have the internal infrastructure to actually do what needed to be done on day one. And so we've set aside some additional resources to make sure that, for example, there's kilns in there, right? Kind of important. And we also heard about our athletic infrastructure, that it's aging. As many of you who've been to our football games know, we got an amazing football team, and at the same time, we're playing on temporary stands that were built 30 years ago. Temporary. So we probably have to do something around that. We also heard from our students in athletics that because we're in 5 different conferences, that some of them have conferences where there's lots of travel and they spend more time on the plane than they should, when we know that they instead need to be in class. And if we're talking about them as student athletes, they're students first, and so we have to prioritize that. As part of the conversations, we've also been able to glean that there are some identities that are really important to this campus. I mentioned that we are a Hispanic serving institution, and we are an Anapese. And I'm proud. In fact, that's one of the things that drew me to being here, because that's what we should be focusing on, right? And as we think about those cluster hires, that's where we're going to go first. But we also heard the need to have ambitious goals around both enrolling and graduating some additional student populations as well. And so we've set out some bold enrollment goals, some BEGs. Goal 1, some of you caught that. Goal 1 is around having the highest enrollment and graduation rates in California for former foster youth and wards of the court. Right now, we are actually have one of the larger Guardian Scholars program, but we are behind LA State and Long Beach. They're leading the way, and so we should be doing more around access. We have a bold enrollment goal now around community college transfer students. That is a primary pathway into post-secondary education for our most minoritized students. Some of our best students transferred from the community college from places like American River College, Folsom Lake College, Sacramento City College, Cosumnes River College, San Joaquin Delta College. There are students who I would describe as incredibly experienced, dedicated, and passionate. We're number 5 in the CSU in transfer. There's no reason we can't be number 1. And we also have a bold enrollment goal around serving our Native American and Indigenous students to have the highest enrollment and highest graduation rates. Right now, we're number 3 in the CSU in terms of Native student enrollment. 5 more students would put us at number 1, but that would still be less than 100, so that's not very ambitious. And so we want to be the central place that our Native and Indigenous students see as a place where they're going to be not only recruited, but supported in terms of graduation and graduate success. Now, in the strategic activities that were released, there's a whole bunch of them, and we don't have time to go through all of that, so I'm just going to cover just a few of them that I thought were worthy of mentioning to you in terms of where we're going as part of our new strategic plan. There are other items within the plan that I look forward to talking about, answering any questions that folks might have, providing clarity about what we heard from the listening sessions, but let me just go through a few of them quickly. First, one of our goals is to implement a coordinated academic advising model. We heard from so many of our faculty, our staff, and our students that academic advising on campus is broken. That is how it was described. And really good examples of it that maybe say like, oh wow, really? We're doing that? And then some of it is so dysfunctional that I would almost use the word to describe it as impressive. We have over 200 full-time academic advisors on campus, and only 26 of them are actually being coordinated through academic advising. Most of them do not receive training in academic advising, and they're in 5 different areas on campus. So we have to have better coordination. I think we can agree on that. We also have to recognize and respect that academic advising is a profession, and it's a profession that is of incredible value to our students. It is critical to the work that we do around student success. Feedback that we heard from the community was that we need to ensure that Hornet Launch places students in classes that they're ready for. We need to have monthly meetings of all the academic advisors to discuss best practices and to share information. We need to integrate advising with the new academic planning implementation. We need to prioritize faculty involvement in advising for those who want to focus on academic advising, but recognize faculty can also be very effective in providing career advising and mentorship. We need to ensure that advising does not track students of color into majors that people believe that are appropriate for them. We need to provide ongoing training for our advisors. And we need to ensure that when different places on campus make up policies or change forms that directly impact advising, that they talk with those who are doing academic advising about that before they do it. So we have a lot of work that can be done there, but it's a problem that's a good problem to have because we know where we're at, we have people, but we got to coordinate better than what we're doing. So the next thing that we're focused on is around serving our Black and African American student population. So many of you may not know this, but Sacramento State is home to the largest enrollment of Black and African American students in the entire Cal State system. Out of all 23 campuses, we enroll more Black students than any other campus. Not only that, are we the highest in all of the CSU, we have more Black and African American students than all of the UCs except for one. Yeah. And so we can celebrate that and also recognize that our graduation rates are in the bottom quartile for Black and African American students. But we have some things on campus that are working. We have some areas where there has been effectiveness and success. We have some educators who are doing amazing work that we should be thinking about as part of this. And so I was part of, and so was Dr. Watson Derbigny, the Chancellor's Office Black Student Success Team. It was a work group across the state. This was actually when I was still at San Diego State, and she represented Sacramento State on that. And there were state-level recommendations that were made in terms of what needs to be done to improve Black student success. And we have looked at those recommendations. They're research-based recommendations. We've looked at what's working on campus. And what we've realized is that after 75 years of being a campus, we still haven't gotten it right. And so we're going to basically try something different. And not only are we going to try something different, but we're going to have a bold and ambitious goal in terms of what we're going to do. We're going to create an institution within the institution that serves our Black and African American student populations, akin to what you see at historically Black colleges and universities. Now, we can't be an HBCU, but we can be everything but the historical. And so we are going to launch what we believe is the first and only Black honors college in the entire nation. We have some great individuals who are going to be involved in that effort, including Ruth Williams and Dr. Ati, that are going to be essential to that. And at the same time, we're also, separate from this, going to be focusing on what we can do to provide enhanced support and expansion for Cooper Woodson College as well. Feedback from the campus community said that we have to prioritize faculty who participated in the Emoja program, that we need to provide experiential learning opportunities for students, and that we need to ensure that faculty members are engaged across disciplines so that students have a robust transdisciplinary experience. Another thing that we heard from our campus community is that our scholarships, we have dollars on hand that we're not giving to students. And so we have a strategic priority to increase scholarship utilization to 95% by fall 2028. Let me tell you why that's important. Right now, we have about $6 million in scholarships that we can give away annually, and we give away about $2 million of it. That's a travesty. And it varies across areas in terms of what the issue is. We have colleges. Our highest college in terms of utilization is giving away 43% of the dollars that are supposed to be awarded. Our lowest college is giving away only 19% of those dollars when we have students who are desperately in need. There's a lot of reasons for this. Some of this is internal, some of it's external. Sometimes we have donors that want to create a scholarship for someone just like them. So imagine if Luke Wood was creating a scholarship. I'm going to create a scholarship from someone who's from Siskiyou County, who majored in ethnic studies, who is interested in African American history, life and culture, and who's in Associated Students Incorporated. And that would be great. And so whenever that person comes along once every 10 years, we can give away those dollars. And so part of it is we have to think about that. We also have scholarships for programs that have been renamed. And based upon how our policies are set in place, if a department has changed its name or a program has changed its name, unless we've gone back out to the donor, we can't give away those dollars. So a perfect example is our Family and Consumer Sciences department used to be Home Economics. Well, we have dollars on hand that can't be given out because internally we haven't went back out to those donors. And sometimes those donors are living. That's an easy thing to do. If they're not, it's actually a pretty extensive process that requires us going through the state. There can be competing priorities for faculty and staff who are part of that process. It's stressful working at state. Can we all agree? Right? It's not like we got a lot of people to do a very little amount of work, right? Every single person here that I know of has multiple hats. And so there's competing priorities, and being real, we have an overly bureaucratic process that for some students, they have said, it's not worth it. And so our feedback from the community is that we have to reduce some of the requirements. A requirement that you have to be a full-time student. Requirements for being a California resident or in-state student that automatically bars our dreamers and our undocumented students. We have to have support for students on how to fill out the application. And we have to ensure that scholarships aren't just given to a few people who are well-trained by a couple of faculty and staff to do it over and over and over again, but we're spreading those dollars out across our students. It's going to require us to have broader flexibility in the new scholarships that we have moving forward, but it's also going to require us to go back out to our donors and have conversations about revising those specifications. It's going to involve streamlining our processes to create better ease for our faculty and staff who are involved in it, and for our students who are the users, the end users of our scholarship process, and better information campaigns so that once we fix these issues, that students know that it is worth it to actually go through that process. Another thing that we're going to focus on is around this identity that we're moving forward to, not because we did anything different, but because, again, faculty and staff here already did the work, which is many of you know that we are going to be reclassified soon as a Research 2 institution, which is great. And that's not based upon anything we've applied for, or anything that that we're trying to do, but really just based upon data of what's already happened, the work that's already been done. We're an R2, which is amazing. And the number one thing that we heard the minute that was mentioned, that was something that we were being redestinated in, is, but what are you going to do about sponsored programs, sponsored projects? And we heard a number of different things about sponsored projects. We heard that there are bottlenecks and barriers that have created massive problems in the post-grad admissions for far too long, that it's time to reassess how a healthier balance in terms of how things are being done. We heard from faculty members that they don't apply for grants anymore because of how broken the system is. And that we have to think about what we're doing in this space in order for our folks to re-engage in applying for external funds. And so if something is, and we know that we got feedback from the state, there was an advisory review, which is kind of like, it's not an audit, but it's feedback in a kind of similar way, and we heard a lot of things. And I want to acknowledge that SPA has been working arduously to implement those recommendations. And at the same time, we heard that the separation of pre-award from post-award is creating challenges. And so we will be moving the reporting of sponsored projects administration to academic affairs to OREAD. There's a lot of details on what that actually means that we'll be unveiling as we move forward, but that's something that was one of the most clear themes that we heard from campus. That and what's coming up next, which is that we, and I used this word earlier, that we have been impressive in some areas. One of the areas that we have been impressive is our bureaucracy. So one of the things I heard was like, do 10 people really need to sign this form for it to be processed? Like, really, 10 people? Half of these people don't even know what this is. And so overall, Sac State's nimbleness during the pandemic highlights its potential to improve, to navigate our complexities and tackle pervasive redundancies and red tapes. So we are establishing a Cut the Red Tape Committee to debureaucratize campus. We will be streamlining workflows, work processes, policies to reduce excessive and redundant workflow on faculty and staff, and to break down the unnecessarily silos and policies that simply just don't make sense. Again, we transitioned from being online to in-person to online, back to in-person, and never reconsidered our processes. Well, we're going to be reconsidering everything. We're going to be going out to the community and saying, where is it that you want us to start? In fact, I was just having a conversation yesterday with one of our vice presidents. We're like, hey, this form comes to our office to sign, but it really doesn't need to. Can we stop doing that? Yeah, we can stop doing that, right? Let's make it so that it's easier. It's not like we have a lot of people who are working and everyone is already overloaded. So can we be really intentional about trying to make it as easy as possible for the people that we have? And so that's one of the things that we're going to be focused on. We heard lots of feedback from the campus community on what that's going to mean, and so we'll be moving forward with that. And the last one that I'll share with you is that we have to do a better job in supporting, developing, and promoting our staff. So we will be launching we will be developing and launching, rather, a Promote Sac State Staff initiative beginning this fall. Of course, it's going to take time to ramp it up to what it needs to be to provide leadership development opportunities and career advancement opportunities. So we have to think about what that looks like for our staff, because what we continue to hear from people is that you've got to go out, leave the campus to go up. Well, why do that when we have somebody who, again, a lot of folks here are dedicated to supporting students and supporting student success, and can we not be the training ground for UC Davis and the Los Rios system? So this initiative will be very comprehensive. It's going to involve focusing on professional development, identifying staff educational goals, transparency in staff salary increases, providing better feedback and concern when concerns arise for staff who are engaging with leadership in situations that aren't as good as they should be. So it'll be an internal leadership academy, more awards and honors and recognition for staff, promoting the tuition waiver for our staff. So I would say if you're a staff member in here and you have heard from someone on campus that we don't want you to, or that you shouldn't do one of the academic programs here, let me just tell you, that is not where we stand. We want you to continue to develop yourself, so please look at the programs here and enroll in those programs. We also, yes. So lots of other things I could go into the details, but ultimately we're going to, a lot of this is what you can see is we're just prioritizing our community. And I think about it like this. There's a saying that you can't be a wounded healer, right? You can't be in a state of dealing with despair and then try to be a system of support for others. And I would say that you could bring that to a systems level. We as a campus cannot be a wounded healer and provide students what we need if we're not prioritizing our faculty and our staff too. And so with that in mind, there were some names that came out through the conversations that we heard. Some individuals that were repeatedly mentioned as being pillars within our community, who are doing amazing work. And like, if you hear a person's name one time, you're like, okay, cool, they're doing good work. But you continue to hear it over listening session, you're like, wow, we should do something. And so we decided that we are going to acknowledge a few different people today who didn't know that they were going to be acknowledged. How about that? Well, maybe they knew. I don't know. We told them to be here, but they, you know. So we'd like to acknowledge some pillars within our community. And if you see your name and picture up on the screen, come on down. And so these are some of the names, the recurrent names that we heard from our listening sessions of people who are doing amazing work for our community. So as part of this effort to be a campus that prioritizes our faculty and our staff, here are some names that I would think that we should recognize. So Charles, Noel, Scott, Eric, Annette, and Jawa, come on down. So for each of them, we have a nice award that says the President's Award for Excellence. And we also have a gift bag that basically has some nice things in it for them. So as I'm going through and handing these to them, I know that you gave them a round of applause, but I want you to pretend like this is our basketball team, and we're in the basketball gym, and we just won the national championship because these folks are doing work that is certainly worthy and deserving of the greatest honor. So please rise to your feet and give them the round of applause they deserve. Thank you all. So, and you all can stay here for a moment. We'll get a picture of y'all. But I just wanted to say, I know that, again, next week is going to look a little bit different, or a lot bit different. But we appreciate everything you're doing for our students. We appreciate the environment that you're creating here on campus. We appreciate everything that you do for Sacramento State. Stingers up.